Have you noticed your adult children making excuses to end phone calls quickly, postponing visits repeatedly, or seeming uncomfortable when they're around you? What if I told you that certain phrases coming out of your mouth are silently destroying your relationship with them? Words that seem innocent to you but feel like emotional daggers to them. The most heartbreaking part is that you might be pushing your children away without even realizing it. In this video, I'll reveal the 6 devastating phrases elderly parents unknowingly use that permanently damage their relationships with adult children, and exactly what to say instead to rebuild your connection before it's too late. Let me tell you about Beverly, a 68-year-old mother of 3 from Denver. For decades, her home had been the center of family gatherings, holidays, birthdays, weekend barbecues. But over the past few years, something changed. Her children started calling less frequently. When they did visit, they'd cut their time short with vague excuses about busy schedules. Beverly couldn't understand what was happening. She called them weekly, sent thoughtful gifts, and constantly reminded them how much she missed them. Yet the distance only grew wider. After months of heartbreak and confusion, Beverly's neighbor, who happened to be a retired family therapist, finally revealed the painful truth. Certain phrases Beverly had been using, words she thought showed her love and concern, were actually driving her children away. The moment she changed her communication approach, her relationship with her children began to heal. Would you like to know what Beverly learned before it's too late for your family too? Let's dive into the 6 phrases that are silently destroying your relationship with your adult children. Number 1. After everything I've done for you. Ubi, when was the last time you reminded your children about your sacrifices, thinking it would make them more appreciative, only to see them become more distant instead? Have you noticed how their faces change when you bring up all you've done for them over the years? Family psychologists at Cornell University have identified guilt-inducing statements as the primary relationship toxin between elderly parents and adult children. Sarah Coleman, lead researcher in intergenerational family dynamics, explains, when parents repeatedly reference past sacrifices, it creates a debt-burden dynamic rather than a loving relationship. Adult children begin to feel that nothing they do will ever be enough to repay what they owe, leading them to eventually avoid the source of that guilt, their parent. Consider Walter, a 74-year-old retired postal worker from Chicago. Whenever his adult sons would visit, he'd inevitably work into the conversation reminders of how he'd worked 2 jobs to put them through college, how he never took vacations to save money for their futures, how he'd sacrificed his own dreams for theirs. He couldn't understand why his sons' visits became shorter and less frequent. I just wanted them to appreciate what I'd done for them, Walter explained. What he didn't realize was that each mention of his sacrifices wasn't fostering gratitude, it was breeding resentment. His sons weren't avoiding him because they didn't care. They were avoiding feeling inadequate and indebted every time they saw him. Here's what you need to do immediately. Replace guilt-inducing statements with specific appreciation for who your children are today. Instead of saying, after everything I've done for you, you can't even call me once a week, try, I'm so proud of the person you've become. I love hearing about your life when we talk. This subtle shift moves the relationship from debt-based to connection-based. Stop keeping score of past sacrifices. They were gifts, not loans requiring repayment. Start acknowledging your adult child as the person they are now, not just an extension of your parenting efforts. Make this change in your very next conversation and watch how quickly the dynamic shifts. Number 2, when are you going to visit me more often? Have you found yourself repeatedly asking when your children will visit, hoping it will motivate them, while instead they seem to pull even further away? Do your messages and calls often include some version of, "It's been so long since you've visited," or "I haven't seen you in months"? Leading family therapists have discovered that pressure-based requests create what they call the obligation avoidance response in adult children. Dr. James Peterson from the American Association of Family Therapy explains, when parents repeatedly express dissatisfaction with the frequency of visits or calls, they unintentionally create anxiety and avoidance reactions in their adult children. Each contact becomes associated with feelings of inadequacy rather than connection, leading to further withdrawal. Take Judith, a 71-year-old widow from Seattle. She couldn't understand why her son, who lived just 30 minutes away, visited less and less often. "I just wanted to see him more," she explained, "so I kept asking when he'd come by next." What Judith didn't realize was that her constant questions about visits had transformed her home from a place of comfort to a source of pressure. Her son began screening her calls and making excuses to avoid visits, not because he didn't love her, but because each interaction had become burdensome rather than joyful. "Every conversation made me feel like I was failing her," her son later admitted. Here's what you must do differently. Replace pressure with invitation and respect for boundaries. Instead of asking, "When are you going to visit me more often?" try, "I'd love to see you when your schedule allows. What might work for you in the coming weeks?" This approach acknowledges your child's autonomy and busy life while still expressing your desire for connection. Make your home a pressure-free zone where adult children can visit without feeling inadequate or trapped. Focus on making the time you do spend together positive rather than guilt-ridden. Implement this change in your communication starting today, not next week or next month, before your relationship deteriorates further. Number 3, that's not how I would do it. There's one phrase so devastating that it can permanently fracture your relationship with your adult children, especially when it involves their parenting, career, or lifestyle choices. When you tell your adult children, "That's not how I would do it," you're not just offering an opinion, you're invalidating their identity and competence as independent adults. Psychological studies from Harvard University's Family Research Center reveal that unsolicited criticism activates deep protective instincts in adult children. Dr. Elizabeth Monroe explains, when parents criticize their adult children's decisions, particularly regarding parenting, it triggers a primal response, the need to protect their autonomy and competence. The most common protection mechanism is creating distance from the source of criticism, which explains why critical parents see their children and grandchildren significantly less frequently. Consider Henry, a 76-year-old grandfather from Portland. Whenever he visited his daughter's family, he couldn't help but point out all the ways his daughter's parenting differed from his approach. "Those kids need more discipline," he'd say, or "we never would have allowed that behavior." He offered these comments thinking he was being helpful, sharing his wisdom and experience. Instead, his daughter began limiting his access to the grandchildren. After several tense exchanges, she finally told him that visits would be on hold until he could respect her parenting choices. Henry was devastated. He'd lost access to his grandchildren without understanding why his helpful advice had caused such damage. Here's what you must do to prevent this family-destroying mistake. Practice validation before offering any input. Replace criticism with respect and curiosity. Instead of, "That's not how I would do it," try, "I see you're handling this differently than I might have, and I respect your approach. Could you help me understand your thinking?" This phrase acknowledges their authority in their own life while opening the door for meaningful exchange rather than judgment. Remember that your adult children grew up in a different world with different challenges. Your solutions may not fit their circumstances. Before offering any advice, always ask yourself, was my opinion requested? If not, Validation is almost always better than criticism. Implement this change today, before your critical comments permanently damage your family bonds. Number 4. Why don't you call or visit more often? Do you repeatedly ask why your children don't call or visit more, hoping it will make them realize they should, only to find it pushes them further away? Have you noticed how these questions often lead to awkward silences or changed subjects? Relationship experts from the National Institute of Family Dynamics have identified accusatory questions as major relationship killers between elderly parents and adult children. Dr. Robert Williams explains, questions that begin with, "Why don't you?" carry an implicit accusation of failure. They put adult children in a defensive position where any answer feels inadequate, creating a cycle of guilt, resentment, and avoidance that can persist for years if not addressed. Take Dorothy, a 70-year-old mother from Atlanta. She couldn't understand why her weekly calls with her daughter had become shorter and less frequent. "I just wanted to understand," Dorothy explained, "so I kept asking why she didn't call more often." What seemed like an innocent question to Dorothy felt like a constant accusation to her daughter. Each call began with some version of, "Why haven't I heard from you?" making conversations feel like interrogations rather than connections. Her daughter began dreading calls and eventually started letting them go to voicemail. The relationship deteriorated to occasional text messages until a family friend helped Dorothy understand how her questions were being received. Here's the immediate change you need to make. Focus on quality over quantity and positive engagement over accusations. Instead of asking, "Why don't you call more often?" try, "I always enjoy our conversations. What's been going on in your life lately?" This approach creates a welcoming space for connection rather than obligation. When you do speak with your children, make the experience pleasant and affirming, so they'll want to call again, not because they should, but because they enjoy talking with you. Remove all forms of "why don't you" from your vocabulary starting today. These seemingly innocent questions are relationship poison that will eventually kill your connection with your adult children if you continue using them. Number 5. No one cares about me anymore. Self-pity statements might seem like they would evoke sympathy and attention, but they're actually silently destroying your relationship with your adult children. When you say things like, "No one cares about me anymore," or "I guess I'll just be alone then," you're not inspiring more visits. You're creating uncomfortable emotional pressure. Studies published in the Journal of Family Psychology show that emotional manipulation, even when unintentional, creates distance rather than closeness. Dr. Timothy Foster, specialist in geriatric psychology, explains, statements that position elderly parents as victims create an impossible situation for adult children. They can never provide enough attention to disprove the claim, leading to feelings of helplessness and eventually emotional withdrawal as a self-protective measure. Consider Chester, a 73-year-old widower from Miami. When his adult children couldn't visit for a holiday due to work or their own family obligations, Chester would respond with comments like, "I understand, I'll just be here alone like always," or "No one has time for old dad anymore." He thought these comments would make his children realize how much he needed them. Instead, they began calling less, feeling that no matter what they did, it was never enough. Each interaction became laden with guilt and inadequacy until his children began avoiding calls entirely. "It wasn't that we didn't care," his daughter later explained. "It was that we could never make him feel cared for, no matter what we did." Here's how to transform this pattern immediately. Express specific needs positively instead of general complaints. Replace statements like, "No one cares about me anymore," with specific positive requests. "I would really appreciate a phone call this weekend if you have time," or "I'd love to have Sunday dinner together next month if that could work for your schedule." When your children do reach out, Focus on making the interaction positive rather than punishing them for past absences. Stop the emotional manipulation tactics today, even if they seem justified to you. Your adult children are not responsible for your happiness, and making them feel that they are will only drive them further away. Implement this change in your very next interaction for an immediate shift in your relationship. Number 6. Your brother, sister would never do this. Have you ever compared your children to their siblings, thinking it might motivate them, only to watch them pull away even more? Did you notice how quickly their expression changed when you mentioned how differently their brother or sister would handle the situation? Family therapists at the American Psychological Association confirm that comparison statements damage adult parent-child relationships more permanently than almost any other. Communication pattern. Dr. Nancy Harris, who specializes in sibling dynamics, explains, comparative statements between adult siblings reactivate childhood competition wounds, creating resentment not just toward the parent, but often toward the siblings as well. These comparisons can damage family harmony for decades if the pattern persists. Take Alice, a 69-year-old mother of 3 from Philadelphia. Whenever her youngest son couldn't help with a household task or missed a family gathering, she'd inevitably mention how her older son would drop everything to be there or never says no when she needs help. She genuinely thought these comparisons would motivate her younger son to be more attentive. Instead, he began avoiding family events entirely, especially those his brother would attend. The comparisons not only damaged her relationship with her younger son, but created tension between the brothers that hadn't existed since childhood. What began as an attempt to encourage more attention ended up fracturing the entire family dynamic. Here's the critical change you need to make. Acknowledge and respect each child's individuality. Replace comparisons with specific appreciation for each person's unique qualities. Instead of, your sister would never miss my birthday, try, I understand you have other commitments. I appreciate how you show care in your own way. Never use one child as a measuring stick for another, even if the differences seem obvious to you. Each comparison plants seeds of resentment that grow into permanent emotional barriers. If you've been making these comparisons, stop immediately and consider apologizing for past comparisons. Healing can begin the moment you recognize and respect each adult child's unique life, circumstances, and ways of showing love. You now understand the 6 devastating phrases that are silently destroying your relationship with your adult children, and exactly what to say instead. By replacing guilt tactics with appreciation, pressure with invitation, criticism with respect, accusations with positive engagement, manipulation with direct requests, and comparisons with individual recognition, you can transform your family dynamics starting today. Remember that it's never too late to change communication patterns. Even relationships that have been strained for years can begin healing with consistent, thoughtful changes in how you speak to your adult children. If you recognized any of these phrases in your own communication, don't wait to make changes. Your relationship with your children is too precious to lose over words that can be replaced. Comment below with which phrase surprised you the most, and subscribe to our channel for more insights that can help strengthen your family bonds. Share this video with friends who might be struggling with their adult children. Your simple act could save a family relationship that's hanging by a thread.